The week 3 college football rankings are out. We're going to talk about it here. Welcome back to the Deep Dig Sports Pod. I'm your host, Drew. My other host, right over there.
What's up? It's D. Good to see you again. Be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe. Drop some comments below. Let us know your thoughts on the top 25 college football rankings. Please let us know because there's some stuff on here I have some gripes with, but I think we're ready to dig into it.
Yep, let's just pull it up right here. Here's the list, man. Georgia, number 1, not surprised at all there. Texas, number 2. Let's just talk about this top 5 really quick because you were just telling me how Texas is going to play Georgia this season. So this is not going to look the same for much longer.
I think they play like week 10 or something like that. That it is on their schedule now. Obviously, Texas moving into the SEC, they're going to be playing a higher caliber. But it is pretty clear right now that Texas is one of the top teams in the nation. And it is very, very clear that Georgia is the top dog in all of the land. So I have no problem with that. Number one, that number two, obviously that's going to change throughout the week because they are going to be playing a bunch of really stiff competition in that SEC. Obviously, I feel really good about Ohio State being in that locked into that number 3 spot. I think they hold their destiny in their own hands. There's no big bad wolf in Michigan this year to take them on in the Big Ten. People were worried about Oregon. If you're an Oregon fan, we'll get to that later. But people were feeling like Oregon was going to give them a run for their money. I don't really know about that. Moving down the list, though,
Bama.
I think so. They put up 46, and it looked like it on paper. If you just look at it, if you didn't watch the game, it looked like, dang, it's another Bama blowout. This was a game that was a 1-point game going into the fourth quarter. It came down to I think it was like 8 minutes left or something like that, and South Florida was down by 8 points, and instead of going for it on 4th and goal, they just decided to oh, you know what? We just need to get the points here. Even though our quarterback can't throw, we've been struggling to work it down the field. Let's just go ahead and take the points and make a one-score game. So they kicked the field goal instead of going for it on 4th and goal. And from there, Bama just, steamrolled them out. They had a really good kick return that put them in good field position. I think they had a pick 6 after that, and it really just snowballed from there on out. But at one point, if they go for it on that 4th and goal and pin them deep, Jalen Milroe he continues to show me he is not a good quarterback. I don't know what's going on. Kalen DeBoer is just not figuring out yet. But eventually this Alabama team is going to lose to a team that they do not deserve to lose to, or they should not lose to. And I'm going to be ready for that.
Yeah, Jalen Milroe, we saw in the championship game, he's not a quarterback. And I was hoping this year he would prove us wrong by just really slinging the ball. But I don't see it with him. And Bama's going to have a huge test this week. Like, was this last game fluky, or will they struggle against a physical Wisconsin team that I think could give them some problems? I mean, I expect them to win it, but it's making me not so much a believer in Bama. Is this the same Bama that we saw with Saban, or is DeBoer's Bama going to start to, fall down with the rest of the pack here? A team I need to see it before I believe it with Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Because I need to see them sustain a long showing of winning against really good teams. They're at number 5. I think they keep on getting ranked high. People believe in them. But here's their schedule. They play a couple of, cupcakes here and there, but then they get into South Carolina, LSU, Oklahoma, Arkansas. They play Georgia, and then they wrap up with Florida and Mississippi State. That's a pretty difficult schedule. Like, let's say they lose to Georgia. Do you think there's 2 more losses in there? Maybe Oklahoma, maybe LSU or South Carolina pulls one out?
I think South Carolina is a little bit better than we expect this year, but I don't think Oklahoma is that good. Oklahoma just struggled against Houston. I think LSU is going to have games where they look great and then games where they just aren't well coached because they don't have a good coach that fits LSU. So I do see where you can see some concerns. I think Missouri is better than Bama. I think that Ole Miss is better than Bama. I think that what Ole Miss is doing is beating teams that they're supposed to beat, and they're beating them handedly. And that's more that you can say about Bama right now at this moment.
Yeah, I'd like to see at the end of the day, like I think they're going to lose to Georgia. If they have another loss or maybe two more losses after that, do they even make the playoff at the end of this when they've been ranked top 5 and people believed that they would be top 5 for the full season? So something we'll look out for. Missouri super high on this list. I can't remember the last time Missouri was this high. Actually, I'm calling this. I think Boston College has a chance at the upset this week. I believe in Boston College. I think they're play calling at a high level. I like the D line there. I like the quarterback. I think this is my we might see an upset here.
I mean, they have a very athletic quarterback that, again, can beat you dinking and dunking and then getting out on the outside and running with his legs, like using his legs at the proper times. We've seen that, again, the quote unquote upset against Florida State. And Bill O'Brien, sneaky, one of the better hires of this offseason for Boston College, getting an NFL guy who knows what he's doing, who's built winning programs before. Bringing him to Boston College, that was a pretty good move, and one that kind of slid under the radar in the college off season. But yeah, I think that's good. I think Tennessee is really good at that 7 spot. I have them as a playoff team right now, and I think that with their quarterback, true freshman Nico, you have a guy with that wide set stacked offense. That is something that gives people nightmares. That is why Hendon Hooker was such a valued prospect, because they ran this style of offense that really, if you're a guy who can pick apart and see the reads, it's very easy for you. And we see that with Nico right now. He is able to kind of pick that up and run with it. And I think he's only going to get stronger as this season goes.
And we're going to see with their schedule too, another tough run. They play Bama in October 19th, and then in November they play Georgia. Those are going to be fireworks games. Those are really going to tell us who is the king of the SEC and where all these chips are going to fall once we get to the SEC championship game. It's interesting because we have all these teams kind of top 5, top 10 in our mind, but that at the end of the day, in the SEC, if you lose 2 games, you don't get to the championship game. Where would that put you when it's all said and done with 12 teams? That's where this 12-team aspect comes, gets really interesting.
It's going to be very, very interesting when it starts to get to the back half of the season. And that's why I was saying, so I don't know if you've seen a little bit of what I talked about on a couple days ago when I talked about the week 2 matchups. This 12-team format is making week 2 interesting when you have a team like Oklahoma State that needs to win their conference because, hey, we might only get one bid from the Big 12 into this 12-team playoff. And then you have a team like Arkansas that, hey, if we have a sneaky good season, we could get into this playoff. And Sam Pittman, the coach of Arkansas, is already telling the broadcast, I am coaching for my life. I know I am on the hot seat. And this game goes to double overtime. It just means more when you have that, okay, well, both of us are kind of vying for the rest of our season. It means a hell of a lot more. Same thing with a couple of these other slots where you're like, okay, can a team from the MAC, and as we start to go down, really make it to this spot? It makes things more interesting. And I think the argument for the 12-team playoff makes the regular season mean less. It's kind of dumb. I think that's over.
Yeah, I think in the aspect of if you're the best team in the SEC, yeah, it matters less because you're going to lose one, maybe 2 games, and you're going to get in. But for everyone else, every game matters now because you could sneak in. Now, if you are the 10th seed, that's a great season. You can tell recruits, we made the playoffs. We're looking to build out. We think we have a shot if we get you. So that's where I think it's actually made the regular season way more interesting. And I know we talked Miami. We're not going to get too much into them. I think they have the easiest schedule, cupcake schedule. They might finish top 3 by when it's all said and done. I want to hear your thoughts. Penn State, Oregon, USC, Utah. Who's real out of that group and who could fall off?
Oregon. Immediately, Oregon is the one who's going to fall off. That team, we've seen them struggle the first 2 weeks of the season. I have no idea. You can't, if I'm the AP voters, I don't know who it is, but why are you ranking this Oregon team that has struggled in back-to-back weeks a top 10 team in the nation? That's ridiculous. And this is before they even hit conference play, and they're not going against the Pac-12 where they can beat up against everybody week in and week out. They are now going in the Big Ten, and it is going to be a lot stiffer competition moving forward. And they haven't even hit conference play yet, and you're already struggling. I think those are the pretenders.
And also upset alert here versus Oregon State this week. That's a potentially tough game for them, especially the way Oregon's looking and the way Oregon State's been playing pretty good. Like this Pac-2, Washington State and Oregon State has been looking good. And I sent you that this stat actually earlier today. The Pac-12 is 21-2 and 3-0 against the SEC this year. Obviously, everyone left the Pac-12, but if they were still together, that's how dominant the Pac-12 would be this year so far. What do you think they fucked up disbanding this conference?
Yes, I think it. I mean, obviously, it was a huge mismanagement by the people that run that conference to let this just be like fall apart. When you had like they had a name brand for themselves, Pac-12 After Dark. This is what like people loved the Pac-12, and they were sad to see it go. And you blew it all, and it's really sad, and it should be a cautionary tale for conferences moving forward as we start to get into this mega conference type of era where it's going to be ultimately it's going to really try to come down to the Big Ten and the SEC and these two conferences. If you're looking at that and you're the Big 12, if you're the MAC, if you're one of these other conferences looking on the outside, the ACC, you're looking at it and you're like, holy shit, how can we not be the Pac-12? How can we make sure that we keep everybody happy? We keep making money on both the college basketball and college football side of things, because ultimately the college football is going to help pay for the basketball. But if you have a strong basketball program, you are going to be a marquee matchup just because of March Madness moving forward. So you need to keep that in your arsenal. So I think it's a huge cautionary tale for everyone that's not the SEC and the Big Ten.
Yeah, well, here's how you keep those other conferences competitive. Make the playoffs. And going down the list, we have in the Big 12, Utah, Oklahoma State, Kansas State. Big 12 kind of dominating the middle of this list, and we have a couple more as we get further down. But who do you think in the Big 12 actually has a shot here to make some noise for the playoffs?
Well, I don't know if you've seen the preseason favorite was Utah Utes, right? And that was because on the like asterisks of Cam Rising being healthy this entire year. And that lasted 2 games. He's already hurt. So, and they don't know how the extent of the injury. I haven't seen an update since yesterday. And it looks like he's trending towards not playing this week. And they haven't put like a time stamp on how long he's going to be out. They're kind of just leaving it ambiguous, just like Christian McCaffrey. So, if Cam Rising does not play, this team is in trouble because they have Isaac Wilson stepping in his first 2 performances. He did not look good. He is the little brother of Zach Wilson. And it just doesn't, they know that Kyle Whittingham's already come out and said, if Cam Rising had stayed in this game, we would have continued to throw the ball. You would have seen the numbers that we're capable of putting up. Once Isaac stepped in, it was about conserving the ball, getting a win, and getting out of there. And that's going to be Utah moving forward as long as Isaac Wilson is it. And that is what Utah gets for putting all their chips in the table on Cam Rising. We've seen it the last few years now where this guy just gets hurt. He does not play smart football, and you can't put your chips on the table with this guy at quarterback.
Yeah, it's not looking too good for the rest of their season, but let's talk about number 16, 17, and 18 here. LSU, Michigan, Notre Dame. These are 3 teams that I've watched this season. I'm like, they're trash. They're not that good. They got a tough schedule. I think, personally, these 3 teams don't end the season ranked. Who do you think has the best chance of staying ranked between the 3, and who has no shot of staying on this list?
I would say the best chance is LSU because I feel like they do have athletes. They have the capability of having good performances and great games on an individual level. Do I think that they are going to string together an entire season? No, because we've already seen them drop the opener against USC. On the other side of it, the team that like realistically, whatever they do moving forward, they are not going to be in the playoff. Notre Dame. Notre Dame, even if they run the table, you cannot put a team that lost to Northern Illinois into this college football playoff. You're basically playing for nothing at this point. You're playing for pride. You can't even play for a conference championship because you're not in conference.
Yeah, that's really where them trying to stay separate from everyone like really screws them over. They have to be perfect. They have to be at least win the games they're supposed to win and be competitive than ones they're not supposed to win. But the fact that they can't showcase themselves in a conference championship game really ties their hands. And I think Michigan just doesn't have a quarterback. They don't look as good. They lost a lot in this last season. Like their corners, running back, quarterback, coach, obviously, and their sign stealer. Like how
Gone.
how like I think the fall is going to be pretty hard for this Michigan team. I think they could go like 6-6 by the end of it, or 5-6, whatever the record would be, like 500.
I think they'll stick around. I think they're going to stick in that like lower ranking, but I don't see them falling out of the top 25 just because they have the ability to like, okay, we have playmakers on defense. We can just will ourselves to a couple of wins that realistically we didn't deserve.
Can any of these teams actually climb the board at all? Louisville, Arizona, Iowa State. I don't believe in Clemson either. I think Clemson's pretty bad, but they should be able to beat up on a lot of their schedule. But it's you're in an ACC. You're clearly not the best team anymore. Like Miami's overtaken that. I think they have no shot of really making noise this season. But can Louisville, Arizona, or Iowa State possibly sneak into that top 12?
When does Louisville ever play a good team? You know what I mean?
They're playing
Like,
Georgia Tech, bro. They're playing Georgia Tech this week.
Okay. That's not a good team. Like, when do they play a good team? So they had Jackson State, they had Austin PV. They're going to play Georgia Tech. They're going to play Notre Dame, who we know sucks. SMU sucks. Virginia is whatever. And then, okay, Miami's going to be the best team they're going to face. Boston College right after. Oh, okay. So that's where they're going to. This is where Louisville gets off the train with ranked teams. They have where it goes Miami, Boston College, Clemson. That's where they're going to fall out of this. I think up until then, you could pretend like Louisville is a good team. We're having a great season. We're ranked in the high teens, but it's going to be fugazi, and eventually they're going to run into good teams, and that's going to be the downfall of Louisville. I think Iowa State has really set themselves up. I like Iowa State. I think Matt Campbell is a really good coach who a couple of years ago, you could have said that he could have had his choice at any big program and they would have wanted him. And he stays at Iowa State. He continues to build. They get a week 2 win against their rival Iowa. They come from behind victory, and they set themselves up the rest of the season for a pretty good shot to continue to climb up the rankings.
Yeah, I would say Iowa State, looking at their schedule, they have games that are tough, but I feel like every game on their schedule is winnable. Like they could hypothetically run the table here. I know they play West Virginia. West Virginia's tough. Baylor, UCF could give them a challenge. They end the season with Utah and Kansas State, and that's really where they're going to make their money. Like if they win those 2 games and they end the season with 1, maybe 2 losses, like this team definitely has a good shot of getting into the playoffs.
Yeah, and those are 2 wins at the end of your season that are really big feathers in your cap in Utah and Kansas State, because those are teams at the top of the Big 12, and you have your chance to make your mark with voters right at the end of the season. Realistically, it's their own destiny at this point, and I think if they win both of those games and for some reason don't win the Big 12, or let's say like they drop one of those games, but they have a really good showing in the other one, they might have a real chance of still making the college football playoff.
Yeah, Nebraska with this is baby Mahomes, right? Nebraska.
This is Dalen Raiola, baby Mahomes. We love it.
Cringiest player in all of college football, maybe in the world.
I think I'm going to get the Mahomes haircut now.
Bro, he even does the Mahomes pregame jump and like walk away. Like, did you see that?
I love it.
He is the cringiest player I've ever seen, but he can spin it. So
dude,
Nebraska
What
definitely can go on a run here.
This is a sleeping giant in Nebraska. This is a team that when they are good, they have the fan base behind them. Did you see that atmosphere in Nebraska? It was crazy. Student section was going wild. They really shook Shador and this Colorado team. They just never really, it seems like they never got off the bus. Like it was
I
just
think
one of those things that this is a fan base that once they activate, they're 100% go.
this is a top 10 team. I think this is a top 10 team. They play Ohio State, they play USC this year. So if they win one of those, I think they're easily top 10. I think they're going to the playoff. Um,
Yeah, I
on
mean, look at
on the
their
on the arm
schedule.
of Baby
They
Mahomes.
they could walk into this Ohio State game undefeated. There is a path for that. Their next game, Northern Iowa, they play a sneaky good Illinois team. Then they go to Purdue. Then they take on a solid Rutgers team. Indiana, Indiana might be dogs. They just put up 77. Coach, what's his name? Coach Signetti. He is awesome. He has the boys rearing to go. That's going to be a sneaky tough game, but they could win all of those games and then head to Ohio State for a matchup that could decide the rest of the season for both teams.
Yeah, but here's the thing: if they lose that game and then they beat USC later, I think that still gets them in the playoff. I think they're still looking really good on the season.
Yeah, but I think they're thinking we could get a bye. If we win this conference, we could get a bye here.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Um,
And they could still get the bye even if they lose that game, that first game. If they meet them in the conference championship, you never know.
And the last two teams on the list, kind of, you look at them there and you kind of go, huh, good for you. But Boston College, we're going to find out who they are this week for sure. They've looked good. They've looked well coached. They know what they're doing. They have talent, but can they beat a real opponent in Missouri? A really, really good, highly ranked team. And Northern Illinois, I mean, you're just here like this is your victory lap. Oh yeah, you beat Notre Dame. Get on the top 25, fuck it, and go beat up on Buffalo. So I think they just enjoy their time in the sun while they're in the top 25.
Yeah, and we already know that the MAC is one of those weird conferences where every team has the possibility to beat any team on any given day. And so I feel like if it's not this week, it's going to be one of these weeks coming up where they just get bumped. As soon as that first loss, they're out of here. Boston College is super interesting because the ACC is not good. We just seen NC State get dog walked by Tennessee. We know that Florida State's not good. We know that Clemson is in this weird spot where, hey, we may be good, we may not be. And Miami is Miami. Like, they don't have a strong schedule throughout the rest of the season, but can you catch up to them and clip them in a conference game because they're confident and they haven't really faced anybody? Who knows? You know what I mean? So, like, it's going to be very interesting. And this is a Missouri team that's not the same Missouri team as last year. Last year, I think they were better than they are this year. And this year, they're higher ranked and they have more expectations.
If Boston College could sneak out a win here, they might have a chance to run the table because you got Michigan State, Western Kentucky, Virginia Tech hasn't looked good. Then you got a Louisville team who we just said is very beatable for them. Syracuse, SMU, and then you wrap it up UNC Pittsburgh. Like, not a powerhouse schedule here.
Yeah, I think it's a very doable schedule if you get over this and you prove to yourself we're a team, we're a force to be reckoned with, and we should be ranked higher than when we are right now. Let's go ahead and make a run for it, boys.
Yeah, that's our list for this week. Well, that's the AP list for this week. Any final thoughts?
No, I'm really excited to see how the rest of the season shapes out. I think eventually it's going to, fall out once we start to see conference play and things like that. But there's some spots where I'm like scratching my head, like, what are voters thinking? Why do we still have Michigan ranked this high? Why do we still have Notre Dame ranked this high? Why is Alabama as high as it is? And there's some teams where it's like, okay, well, did we really need Northern Illinois? Or could we have put an Indiana team who's taking care of business and done it the last few weeks and actually just put up 77? I know they have a test this week, so we'll see. But like, is there other schools that we felt more Like, honestly, like, just throwing it out there. Syracuse. Kyle McCord is a different animal than he was previously.
Yeah.
He's much more confident. And you could tell, like, it's just something about being in a spot that actually wants you, that pumps guys up and makes them feel like they are bulletproof.
Yeah, we're gonna see. There's gonna be so much movement, especially with everyone getting into the SEC and getting into the Big Ten. Like, yeah, you're gonna have a lot of teams at the top who are really good, but once you get in that middle of the bracket, like, who is falling out because they're in a difficult schedule, and who is working their way back up just because they're playing. They might be in the MAC where they're winning games. They're in the ACC where they're winning easy games. So that's gonna be just like, I think the board can the top 25 board can completely flip upside down at any given moment.
Yeah, and I think the Big 12, I think the Big 12 teams are going to beat each other up too. I would not be surprised if the Big 12 champion comes out with like 2 or 3 losses.
And then too, I think there could be an SEC team with like 3 losses getting in. I mean, could we see 4-loss SEC teams sneak in?
I think that might be too far. I think that might be too far gone.
I don't know. I mean, we got to see where the rest of the chips would fall with these losses, because I mean, who's undefeated? Like, there's already like a lot of teams that have L's on them, and a lot of these teams who are undefeated at the top play each other.
Yeah. But it's going to be really fun. And I think what we've seen for the first few weeks with like these interesting matchups, a USC taking on LSU, just things that we don't see often. It's going to be so fun in those the first round, especially of that college football playoff, to see these matchups that we don't really see often, and to see these play styles where it's like, okay, can we really match up? Can we do this? Is Iowa State going to really take it on a Old Miss team that can really light up the scoreboard? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think that's all we got for this week. We'll be right back. We're going to be here on Saturday, kind of midday, wrapping up some of the games. So make sure you subscribe, comment how you're feeling about this top 25, and like the video.
All right, later.
See ya.